Pandit Kumar Deva Goswami needs no introduction to you all. Born to the family of the great philosopher, educationist, late revered Mahesh Chandra Dev Goswami of Bihalongini fame, and late revered Jyotirmoy Devi Goswami, Professor Goswami was the head of the Department of English at Guwahati University. He was also the Srimanta Shankardev Chair Professor and head of the Department for Assamese Studies at Tezpur University. Scholar and critic Professor Goswami has written and lectured extensively on the Shankardeva movement in Assam, 19th century Assamese literature and culture, Banikanta Kakoti and the intellectual history of Assam, and on Assamese studies and others. Some of his essays and lecture comprise Prabandha, a landmark, considered a landmark in Assamese criticism. We welcome Professor Goswami to this evening's lecture, and by doing so, I request our trustee, Justice Hirendranath Sharma, to come up to the dais and join us here. May I now request Professor Dev Goswami to come up to the dais. One of our volunteers may kindly escort Professor Goswami to the dais. May I now request the dignitaries on the dais to lit the ceremonial lamp. May I also request Dada's friend, Vikram Singh Deo, Chandran Singh Bankoti, and Subhas Polo to come and join the dignitaries on the dais and help them in lighting the lamp. I am informed Mr. Don Paul is also here. May I, Dr. Don Paul, kindly come up to Doctor. We have amidst us Sri Gunin Oja, who has been recently awarded the Sangeet Natak Academy Award. He will render the Borgit composed by the 15th century saint Sri Sri Shankardeva and would sing the Borgit titled Kahare Uddhava Kaha Prane Bandhava Rag Bakhanta Tal Rakshas. He will be accompanied on the flute by Prasanna Borua, on the khol by Manoj Kumar Das, who was also awarded recently the Ustad Bismillah Khan Award, and on the tal by Kaushik Das. May I request them to render the Borgit.
Hello.
পাইছে বজক নাই পোৱা ৰিয়াদা চান্স কৰিম
পৰম শ্ৰদ্ধাভাজন সুধীয়জনসকল, মই এটি মহাপুৰুষ শংকৰদেৱ বিৰচিত বৰগীত গাব ওলাইছোঁ। এই বৰগীতটি ৰাগ বসন্ত, তাল ৰস এক তাল। এই বৰগীতটিৰ লগত সংগত কৰিছে মোৰ শ্ৰদ্ধাৰ প্ৰসন্ন বৰুৱা। মোৰ খোলত সংগত কৰিছে মনোজ কুমাৰ দাস আৰু তালত সংগত কৰিছে কৌশিক দাস। হৰক দেখিয়া বায়ু প্ৰণাম কৰিলা, হৰক দেখিয়া বায়ু প্ৰণাম কৰিলা, মহাৰংগ মনে হৰে বসন্ত ৰাগ দিলাৰে Hare Yudha
প্রাণের বান্ধব হে প্রাণ কৃষ্ণ কয়ে আবে পুষয়ে গোপী প্রেম আকুল ভাবে নাহি চেতন গাবে বাঁশুরি ধ্বনি শুনি গোবৎস দেখি লাগে আগি গাৱে উদ্ধৱ সখী নাহি চেতন গাৱে কালিন্দী দেখি সখী উদয় বুক এঠাই খেলাই চিলহে চান্দ মুখ হৰিল নয়ন সুখ কহৰে উদ্ধৱ কহ প্রাণের বান্ধব হে প্রাণ কৃষ্ণ কবে আবে উষয়ে গোপী প্রেম আকুল ভাবে নাহি চেতন গাৱে বৃন্দাবন বৈরি আমারি ভেলি পেখিতে না বিচার গোপাল কেলি নাহি চেতন গাৱে ধ্বজ বজ্র জব পঙ্কজ সাই কৃষ্ণ গুর যাবিনে ব্রজ অন্ধার নে দেখো এ দুঃখ অবধি পার নাহি চেতন গাবে আর কি পে কব গোপাল প্রাণ কৃষ্ণ কি কর কর ভান হরিক হৃদয় জান কহরে উদ্ধব কহ প্রাণের বান্ধব হে প্রাণ কৃষ্ণ কবে আবে উষয়ে গোপী প্রেম আকুল ভাবে নাহি চেতন গাবে নাহি চেতন গাবে নাহি চেতন গাবে।
We express our gratitude to Gunin Oja and his team for creating the aura for today's lecture. The felicitation ceremony shall now begin. May I request Lukumoni Gogoi and Jayashree Mahanta to assist us in the process. First, may I request Jayashree Mahanta to felicitate our trustee, Hirendranath Sharma, with a fulan gamusa and a bouquet of flowers. May I now request Lukumoni Gogoi to felicitate Professor Ranjit Kumar Devagoswami with a fulan gamusa, a bouquet of flowers, and a memento presented in honor of Professor Devagoswami by the trustees and the members of the family. We are grateful to Professor Devagoswami for accepting our invitation to grace this evening's lecture. May I also request Jayashree Mahanta and Lukumoni Gogoi to felicitate Gunin Oja and his team. May I now request my father to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, everybody. Our trustees, Justice Hiren Sharma, Professor Goswami, Honorable Justice Uteshwar Singh, and Justice Suman Shyam and Mrs. Shyam. Professor Tarak Chaudhary, my friend. Gangapati Chaudhary. Metis, my friends, ladies and gentlemen. I am grateful for all of you to give us this support in arranging this lecture series. We are continuing this support with your great support, and we are indeed grateful for you here to be here. Amitabh's dear friend, two of them, Amitabh Chandan Singh, Bankoti, Bikram Singh Deo, two of his friends are here with us, who has traveled all the way to Guwahati, especially to attend the lecture. And respected ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you all. Today, the 19th December, for us, is a special day for us, since it happens to be the birthday of Amitabh. He was the pillar of our strength, and maybe with many of you seated here. He had in him a strong will to be service of all. He was always a giving nature, and in fact, we feel that as if he is with us in every moment. In his memory, we continued this lecture, and the great support you gave us, for that we are indeed grateful. The mission of the Trust was to achieve that valuable bit which he would have done had he been with us. We make every effort to endeavor to contribute to his own way, little something to do. Our strength mainly depended on you. One of the guiding light is not here today. Jotin Hazarika, a great persona, not only a competent civil servant, not only, but he was indeed a great person that he was born in Assam. He is not here, but he is our strength. Every moment he inquires about how is the progress, how is the lecture, how is all. With deep sense of gratitude to the members of the family and trustees, recall the tremendous encouragement and support of yours. We are indeed privileged to have amidst us our guest speaker, Professor Ranjit Kumar Deva Goswami. I recall with gratitude our association with Professor Dev Goswami's father, late Mahesh Chandra Deva Goswami, a satirist, a pioneer in Assamese journalism, a person who was engaged in all the social and political activities. His Bilongoni, his journal sent a new trend, and that is not today. We do not find that piece of periodicals, writings, and encourage many writers and authors through Bilongoni. We are indeed happy and that Sri Goswami accepted our offer. And today, Professor Goswami will deliver a talk which you and we all of us will love it, about this city of Guwahati is a where we spend our time. It is a wonderful city, a very friendly city. It's a city with lot of traditions. We grew up in this city as a very friendly city, agog with sports and those activities. I still recall those days. There were fields throughout all the places. This search field we called. Now, government engaged these things in earning money. Churchfield was indeed a field where we grew up and played in all sorts of sports. We met people like that. Judges Field is here. That has been kept where only for reserved for their own personal for a club. There are two fields, new fields we used to call it. We grew up in that field. One field was given for the Cotton Collegiate School, the other field was Cotton College. But everyone played there. Guwahati, in those times, we were known for the sports activities mostly, not only tournament. The first Olympic captain, Telimori now, studied in Cotton College and played football for Maharana Club. From there he was picked up by Mohan Bagan. Then he became the captain of the Indian Olympic captain, whom I met as a director of health in Kohima later life. There were Telimoni now, in football. There were the Sosini Rajbangshi, Badal Thakur in cricket, Pilik Chaudhary, a legendary person. So that was Guwahati. Guwahati was not only a friendly city, if you come to Guwahati, you learn something. That was this city. People once coming to Guwahati did not like to go away. This was the town Guwahati. And today also, Guwahati is changing, but culture is totally a different society. Sports activities, education, to some of the individuals, they were basically controlling this. One was Anna Borua sir, headmaster of Cotton College School. There was Gulab Chaudhary of Kamrup Academy, Naren Sharma of Sonaram High School, and Bengali school teacher, I forgot his name, he was in Paltan Bazar. We used to call him Hedu. Hedu means headmaster. The Bengali school boys used to call them Hedu. And my friend is no longer here today. Chotka, Tara Prasad Chakraborty studied there. Some of our people, Assamese people, were reading Bengali. One was Tara Prasad and his family, Bani studied, his sister Bani studied here. Because they were working, father was, Srinath Chakraborty was working there in Sylhet. So for that, they studied Bengali. Annada Bhagavati, he could not first speak Assamese fluently, because they were in Sanskrit college, they were staying and studying in Sylhet. Guwahati, and I really, in that way, when this talk, I think, will give you a pleasure. Goswami is a good speaker. I am not taking your time. Let us start and go and hear Goswami. Thank you very much.
Our trustee, former IS and statesman, Sri Jatin Hazarika, as well as Sri Dilip Kumar Hazarika, senior advocate and artist of repute, have been of constant support to the trust and to the family. They could not be present today physically. As a mark of our reverence and gratitude, we have decided to felicitate them. May I request Kaustav Talukdar to come up to the dais and receive the honor on behalf of Hazarika sir. Mr. Talukdar happens to be the grandson of Sri Jatin Hazarika. May I now request Diksha Rai Goswami to come up to the dais and receive the honor on behalf of Sri Dilip Hazarika. Sri Dilip Kumar Hazarika has been, in fact, a mentor to the family as well as to many of us seated here, to the legal fraternity as well as to the cultural world. May I now request our guest speaker to deliver the lecture.
Thank you, Bernali. Justice Hiren Sharma, Justice D.N. Chaudhary, Tarakeswar Chaudhary, sir, ladies and gentlemen. I chose this topic because, as has been pointed out, Amitabh was one of the finest products of the city of Guwahati. Extraordinarily sensitive, full of questions all the time. He loved to hear stories of Guwahati, Guwahati's past. Hence this topic. There will be two parts of my lecture. The first part on the historical scene. It's a series of general observations on the city of Guwahati, which has three components. And the second part will be a kind of freewheeling discussion on some of the personalities of the past to whom we owe everything, our sense and sensibility, pride and prejudice, everything. So without any waste of time, I would like to read out a few lines which, as I said, are a series of general observations on the city. Guwahati was a temple town that later transformed itself into a military garrison, guarded on all its sides by hundreds and thousands of soldiers. Jean-Baptiste Chevalier, governor of Chandarnagar, 1767-78, who visited Assam during 1755-57, saw with his own eyes some 50,000 men guarding the river banks in Guwahati near Sukresar. Actually, no one was allowed to enter into the city. So it was Jean-Baptiste Chevalier himself who said that 50,000 Assamese soldiers were guarding the river banks. It was in the middle of the 18th century. Guwahati's history has three components: the mythopoetic past of Pragjyotispur, the number two, Kamrupa from the 7th century till the 17th century. 7th century means from Kumar Bhaskar Burma to the 17th century. And finally, from the 17th century to the present times. So three components. The artifacts yielded by the series of Ambari excavations point to a strong link between the mythopoetic and the modern, the continuity of a tradition from far-off antiquity to the subsequent periods, from the 7th century to the 12th century, and from the 13th century to the 17th. From the early 19th century to the middle of the 20th, Bhorolumukh remained the intellectual and cultural capital of the city. I'll be talking about it in the second part. Bhorolumukh, the birthplace and citadel of modernity in Assam, linking this land to the rest of the world. The continuing potency of the Pragjyotispur myth is borne out by the rich share of Sthala Puranas, or legendary accounts of the place. Many gods and goddesses and godlike heroes have, according to them, passed by this place, leaving behind them a trail of memories eventually consecrated by time. The prominent among those who throng the mythical world of Guwahati, identified as well with the ancient city of Pragjyotispur or Kamrupa, include, number one, Brahma, who, according to Kalika Purana, had created the stars at Navagraha, situated on the Chitrasal hill at the heart of the city. Number 2, Vishnu, whose footprints are worshipped at Janardhan Vishnu temple at Ossakranta. Number 3, Shiva, who is worshipped in scores of temples in and around Guwahati. Number 4, Sati, whose memory is inscribed in Kamakhya, one of the prominent Shakta Pithas of the country. And 5, Ganesha, whose vast image gives a place near the city, near the state capital, its name, Ganesh Guri. Says Boshishta and his wife Arundhati also make their mythical presence felt at Bohishthashram, some 10 kilometers west of Panbajar, the heart of the city now. Indeed, the myths evoke ideas of ancient geography with such compelling force that they baffle a wary reader's attempts at reconstructing the past. An article, Ancient Assam, published in the Calcutta Review, volume 45, 1867, related Assam to Lord Krishna's Magadhan campaign and made speculations about the etymology of the word Guwahati in these words. Very interesting speculation about the etymology of the word Guwahati, and also interesting observation on Lord Krishna, whom we worship. It was after the Magadha campaign that Krishna, moved no doubt by the prospect of plunder, as by any fanatical spirit, Krishna is called a plunderer here, marched against the capital of Narakasur. Indeed, it may be regarded as more than probable that Pragjyotispur of the Hindu annals and Kusavati of the Pali and Tibetan records were one and the same city. Tanar, in his introduction to the Mahabhangsha, Mahabhangsha is a 5th century Sri Lankan chronicle, and it was newly edited in the 20th century. A Mahabhangsha mentions Kusavati as one of the chief cities in India at this period, which were noted as the seats of government of the different branches of the Magad family. It received its name from the Kusa grass, with which this part of the country abounds. And we are much mistaken if the modern Guwahati is not simply a corruption of the olden name. The Assamese notoriously substitute a soft for a harsh sound and aspirate for a sibilant. Thus, G would be substituted for K and H for S. With these substitutes, Kusavati would become Guwahati, and with further substitution of H for W, Guwahati. This last represents precisely the mode in which the word is universally pronounced by the people. It is the same story of Guwahati's past that came to be repeated in the Baptist Missionary Magazine, August 1874. And interestingly, in the same kind of language, words and phrases of the Calcutta Review piece, all intact. Quote, Pragjyotispur, the modern Guwahati, is spoken of by Ptolemy as Asonomaro. So Ptolemy is brought in. Asonomaro, the destroyed throne. So these are the speculations. And Tanar, in his preface to the Mahabhangsha, mentions it as one of the chief cities in India at that period, etc. So I skip this part. Guwahati derives its present name in the 16th or the 17th century. References to this place as Guwahata or Guwahati, more or less common in 17th century Assamese, Bengali and Mughal records. Among the Mughal records, Tarikhi Assam is there, Fatiha-i-Ibriya, and an English translation of the book has already been published by Agdas Ali Mir, translated into Assamese by one of my former colleagues, Mazhar Asif, now at JNU. Guwahati derives its present name in the 16th or the 17th century. References to this place as Guwahati are more or less common in 17th century Assamese, Bengali and Mughal records. Various conjectures have so far been made about the etymology of the word, the least troublesome among them being the Sanskrit Guwakahata, Guwahati, meaning a marketplace or area full of areca nuts. The Chinese pilgrim Huensang's reference to the great number of areca nut trees here, along with 2 inscriptions of King Balaburman of Kamarupa, describing the city in terms of the areca nut trees, lend credence to this derivation. To say that the word Gua has come from Guha or Kartikeya or Guha, cave, is perhaps to stretch things a little too far. Guwahati was one of the main theaters of contest during the Ahom-Mughal conflicts of the 17th century. In 1639, the contesting powers fixed the river Barnadi and the highway Osurar Ali near Guwahati as the boundary between Assam and Mughal India. While Kamrup was ruled by Mughal Faujdars with their headquarters at Guwahati, Momai Tamuli Borborua, the Ahom general, stationed himself at a garrison at the end of Guwahati to resist any possible attack on the Ahom kingdom. In 1568, King Jayadhar Singha wrested Guwahati from the Mughals and extended his power to the neighborhood of Dhaka. The victory was short-lived. Guwahati was captured again in 1662-63 by Mughal forces under Mir Jumla. Hostilities continued unabated, and the Mughals were ultimately ejected from the town on November 4, 1667. The news of the recapture of Guwahati by the Ahoms having reached Emperor Aurangzeb in December, Rajput General Raja Ram Singha was deputed to lead an expedition to Assam. This powerful Mughal army, consisting of 30,000 infantry, 80,000 Turkish cavalry, 15,000 Koch archers, and others, was inflicted defeat by the Assamese, led by Lasit Borphukan, in what came to be known as, in history as the Battle of Saraighat. Pushing the Mughal army beyond Assam's western frontier at Manaha, the Ahoms regained possession of Guwahati and Kamrup. The town again fell to the Mughals on February 26, 1679. In 1682, the invading army of Mughals was attacked at Itakhuli or Sukreswar Hill at Guwahati by the Ahom forces, and the town finally liberated from the Mughal marauders. Guwahati thus remained under the Mughals for about 26 years in the 17th century. There was this 19th century Assamese song by Radhanath Fukan, Kionu Pahora Ohomia Hera Sirokal Tumi Asila Sadhin, a famous song. But then this Guwahati itself was under the Mughals for full 26 years, and maybe later 2 years under the Burmese. It was at Guwahati again that King Rudra Singha had mobilized a huge army of 400,000 soldiers to take over Bengal. Incidentally, I remember it was Mamoni Roysom Goswami who took up a major project on this theme, Rudra Singha trying to capture Bengal. An advance force stationed near the river Manaha waited for a signal from the king to enter the Mughal territory in Bengal. But the king died all of a sudden at Guwahati in September 1714, his dream of conquest unfulfilled. With British merchants starting their business transactions in Assam, Guwahati emerged as an important township in Assam in the 18th century. Disputes with foreign merchants and invaders were all decided here. Following disturbances in Upper Assam, King Gaurinath Singha fled to Guwahati in January 1788, leaving his Prime Minister Purnananda Buragohai at Gorgaon to manage the deepening crisis in Upper Assam. The king remained here at Guwahati for 6 years, February 1788 to January 1794, during which he established contact with East India Company with a view to curbing insurgency in his kingdom. The early years of the 19th century found Guwahati in turmoil again. The town was occupied in June 1822 by Mingi Maha Bondula, the redoubtable Burmese general, who had come here to establish Jogeshwar Singha as the king of Assam by expelling the embattled monarch Chandrakanta Sinha. The British troop finally entered Guwahati on March 28, and after fierce fighting with the Burmese, occupied the town. On the annexation of Assam by the British, following the signing of the Treaty of Yandabo, February 24, 1826, Guwahati became the vantage ground for the new rulers to control further operations from. For about 200 years till the British occupation of the region, Guwahati, the seat of the Ahom Viceroy, there is this Borphukan or Tila, where this Ahom Viceroy stayed. Later, it was Archibald Bogle who stayed there. And now this place is known as the River Heritage Center. Wonderful place, a wonderful view of the river. For about 200 years till the British occupation of the region, Guwahati, the seat of the Ahom Viceroy, was a heavily fortified township. Then quote, this is a quotation from William Robinson, a descriptive account of Assam 1840, quote, "It occupied within its fortifications a vast extent of country on both banks of the great stream, that is the Brahmaputra, the hills on either side forming a spacious amphitheater, equally well fortified by nature and by art. It was the capital of all Lower Assam and the residence of the Viceroy or Borphukon. The entrances into the city were all guarded passes on either bank of the river. The ruins of the gateways of some of these passes are still to be seen, and the remains of the extensive fortifications may to this day be traced to miles in the mounds and ditches that now serve only to mark the ancient citadel," unquote, William Robinson. What is now called North Guwahati was within the main urban jurisdiction, and it had the following fortified entrances: Silar Soki, Osokrantor Soki, Rajaduara Soki, or Kanai Borohi Boa Soki. Entrances to the southern part of the town were Joyduar Soki, Kharghora Soki, Kukurakota Soki, Panikhaiti Soki, Beltola Soki. The only entrance to the west was variously designated Duar Gorilla Soki, Dobdora Soki, and Pandur Soki. The British officials found Guwahati a very poor place, quote unquote. This is from Hamilton, an account of Assam. He never visited Guwahati. He stayed there in Gwalpara, Hadira Soki, and maybe he got reports about the unhealthy atmosphere of the city. The most unhealthy station in Assam, skirted by high ranges of hills, obstructing prevailing winds, proximity of dense wooded marshy jungles, and multitude of oil tanks choked up with weeds, jungles, and marshy lands. This is from John Meko's Topography of Assam. Colonel Hopkinson, agent to the Governor General, Northeast Frontier, felt Guwahati was neither fit for habitation of European officers and their families, nor even for natives of India beyond Assam. When the idea of a college at Guwahati was mooted towards the end of the 19th century, some people objected to the choice of Guwahati as a site for the new college and pointed to Shillong instead as what was considered the most appropriate place for it. For all this, however, Guwahati was chosen as the headquarters of the company rule for its strategically central location. Dharmakanto Guhai, in his Guwahati Biboran, it's a long poem celebrating Guwahati, description of Guwahati. In Orunodoy, June 1853, he took appreciated note of the new styles of architecture, characterizing the Commissioner's Court, the Magistrate's Court, and the church, among others. The huge concrete structures, quote unquote, were described there as high as the mountain, suggesting a radical change in the landscape of the town within years of the British conquest of the region. Steamer service in the Brahmaputra between Calcutta and Guwahati was introduced in 1847, and within a decade it was extended from Guwahati to Dibrugarh. Rail service between Guwahati and Calcutta was inaugurated in 1911, following completion of work on the track after the great earthquake of 1897. Though the seat of government was shifted to Shillong on the constitution of Assam as the Chief Commissioner's province in 1874, Guwahati retained its importance as the nerve center of the entire region for close to a century till 1971, when the capital of the state was shifted to Dispur in Guwahati on the carving of the new state of Meghalaya out of the earlier Assam districts of Khasi and Jayantia Hills and Garo Hills. The establishment of Cotton College, 1901, Earl Law College, 1915, Handic Girls College, 1939, and the university, 1948, turned Guwahati into a higher education hub of the state in the first half of the 20th century. Guwahati was also in the forefront of the struggle against British imperialism. Mahatma Gandhi's first visit to the city on 18th August 1921 heralded a new era of the freedom struggle in the region. The Guwahatians on that day, accompanied by hundreds and thousands of people from the neighboring villages, flocked to Pandu Ghat to receive him and later witnessed the bonfire of foreign clothes in the presence of Tarun Ram Phukon's house at Bhorolumukh. Gandhiji again came to the city on 26 December 1926 to attend the AICC session at Pandu. The city brought credit to itself by organizing an event of such magnitude in a remarkably short span of time. To quote D.G. Tendulkar, the Mahatma's biographer, quote, Guwahati beat all previous records and in an incredibly short time erected in the midst of surroundings of natural beauty on the banks of the Brahmaputra, a city under khadi canvas. Assam bamboo, Assam mud, Assam straw, and Assam labor were responsible for the very simple but artistic huts erected for the occasion, unquote. This is from Mahatma, Life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Volume 2. We all know that Gandhiji again came here in 1934 and in 1946, and some senior citizens of Guwahati had seen Gandhiji, and they also went up to the Saranya Hill. Justice Chaudhary also touched Mahatma's feet there, Saranya Hill, in 1946. So this was a rapid survey of the scene of history, which, as I had said, the three components. Now I come to some personalities. Actually, I must offer an explanation about the choice of the topic. It was the city and its dwellers. Now I'll be talking about the dwellers of the city. And dwelling, it has all sorts of philosophical meanings. Dwelling also involves a sense of belonging. So among the dwellers, I also include not merely some Europeans who were officers here, like Francis Hamilton, who first came here as a lieutenant, then became major, then lieutenant colonel. Finally, he retired as a major general. And maybe to a certain extent, the 19th century was the century of Francis Jenkins. So Jenkins, Methi, Bogle, and so on and so forth, they are also dwellers of the city. So I'll be talking about them in some very general terms. Guwahati is a vast echo chamber, reverberating with pulsing sounds of footfalls. So here, footfalls. I remember some lines from folk quartets, which I kept reciting here in these rooms. This was called the Union Hall when we were students and when I taught here. This was U2, U9. And this is how folk quartets, this is one of the finest poems by T.S. Eliot, begins, time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. What might have been is an abstraction, remaining a perpetual possibility only in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory. Footfalls. So I'll be talking about footfalls. Footfalls not only of people who were here, but also of the visitors. And the visitors include great men like Mahatma Gandhi, even C.V. Raman and others, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who stayed here when the first convocation of Guwahati University took place in February 1951. Radhakrishnan stayed here in the principal's house, in the vice chancellor's house. This was the residence of the vice chancellor of Guwahati University, and the redoubtable K.K. Hendik was the vice chancellor, and Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan stayed here as his guest. Anyway, footfalls echo in the memory. Guwahati is a vast echo chamber, reverberating with pulsing sounds of footfalls, echoes near and distant of the footfalls of people who were dwellers of the city. Great people have lived here down the ages, men and women of strength and courage, knowledge and wisdom, grit and grace and resilience, great poets, great writers, great leaders and freedom fighters, erudite scholars, men and women of formidable intellect, historians and literary personalities. Already Justice Chaudhary has named some of these great men. He has talked about footballers, he talked about Telimarana. I can also talk about Hemrod Datta Chaudhary, whom we have forgotten. Hemrod Datta Chaudhary, it was the great P.C. Rai called him the golden chariot. Hem is gold, wrought his chariot. He called him P.C. Rai called him the Golden Chariot. So P.C. Rai, Hemrod Datta Chaudhary, Telimaran Rao, Sharad Das, they were great footballers. They were great musicians. So we'll have occasion to talk about them in course of time. Men and women of formidable intellect, historians like Kanaklal Borua, Surya Kumar Bhuya, Heramba Borpujari, Amalendu Guha, these were the people. And literary personalities, great teachers we have almost forgotten their names now. Janmejoy Das, who was the headmaster of Cotton Collegiate School. Chandra Mohan Goswami, who was the guru of Lakshminath Besborua and Padmanath Gohai Borua. Chandra Mohan Goswami, a great teacher. Later he became inspector of schools or magistrate. But I think finally he came back to collegiate school. Janmejoy Das and Chandra Mohan Goswami, you recall. Then another person, Rameshwar Borua. His name is important here because he was the first Assamese teacher of Cotton College. At the time he was working at Cotton Collegiate School. We should remember him as the first teacher of Assamese composition. Assamese composition was a subject in Cotton College at the time. It was in 1913 that Satyanath Bora joined as a lecturer in Assamese Cotton College. But prior to that, Rameshwar Borua taught Assamese composition to students for a year or so. Rameshwar Borua spent much of his time at Nagaon, and I think finally he came to Guwahati and spent a year here, and he also taught at Cotton College. Rameshwar Borua, very important personality. He was General Secretary of Assam Sahitya Sabha for 3 consecutive terms. He was also the editor of the Assam Sahitya Sabha Patrika. He was a founder member and activist of the Srimanta Shankar Sangha. He was a writer of Namgoha and its place in literature. He contributed a number of articles in the contemporary periodicals, and it was Professor Maheshwar Neog who gave the Rameshwar Borua centenary lecture, which Assam Sahitya Sabha had later published as Guru Choritor Iti Kotha. There in the first 2 or 3 pages, Professor Neog talked about Rameshwar Borua, and he said that Rameshwar Borua's paper, Rameshwar Borua's Assamese article, Tamil Nokhua Sampradayar Kotha, quote unquote. This is the name of the essay. I haven't been able to read this essay because I haven't found it in any of the journals I have access to. Tamil Nokhua Sampradayar Kotha, which Maheshwar Neog called it one very important research paper ever published. The organization of the data and so on and so forth. This is Rameshwar Borua. So we remember him as the first Assamese teacher of Cotton College. So great teachers. Okay, numerous teachers were there, numerous teachers of Cotton Collegiate School, Cotton College, not only P.C. Rai, Bonamali Chakraborty and others, great teacher. Padmanath Vidya Binod, some Assamese people made fun of him. Even Dr. Banikanta Kakoti made fun of him, Padmanath Vidya Binod, because in those days this Assamese Bengali kind of conflict was there. Anyway, great teacher to whom we owe this Kamrup Sasanabuli, a classic. Without Kamrup Sasanabuli, some kind of disturbance, yeah. So the Europeans were Francis Jenkins, 1793, 1866, James Matthew. Now these names are important because it was because of Jenkins and Matthew that Anandaram Dhekial Phukan could go to Calcutta. So we'll be talking about this. Archibald Bogle, there is the famous Bogle Road. And even that house, which has now become a river heritage center, Scottish kind of architecture, that was built by Archibald Bogle. Then William Robinson. William Robinson was the second headmaster of Collegiate School. He later became inspector of schools. He was not only here, he also worked there at Tezpur. Haribilas Agarwala met him at Tezpur when he was inspector of schools. Reverend Robert James Bland. James Bland is important for us. James Bland. He was an assistant chaplain of this church. Assistant chaplain. Later he became chaplain. And we all know that Anandaram Dhekial Phukan couldn't continue there in Calcutta because of problems on the home front. Because of problems on the home front, he had to come back. And he was just loitering here, and he met James Methi. Methi said, okay, meet Reverend Bland, and he will teach you English. Reverend Bland was a graduate of Jesus College, Cambridge. And it was Reverend Bland who taught Anandaram Dhekial Phukan English. And this is something to be taken note of. Reverend Bland, he married William Robinson's daughter. Bland was married at Guwahati on 6 July 1859 to Emmeline, daughter of William Robinson, Inspector of Schools. Bland was a chaplain of Guwahati for 18 years. Bland is important for us because of his association with Anandaram Dhekial Phukan. So among the dwellers, I would also like to take note of a casual visitor like Bishop Cotton. Bishop Cotton, he was the Bishop of Calcutta, and as such, since Guwahati was also under Calcutta in a sense, it was in Bengal presidency, so he kept coming here. And I remember he took great interest in the activities of the Christians at Guwahati, and he visited the church there, opposite this building. Church filled the church. Some kind of foreign sound. The rugby school, when the legendary Thomas Arnold was the headmaster. He joined rugby school as an assistant teacher towards the end of Thomas Arnold's career. The great Thomas Arnold of rugby. And inspired by his ideals, he continued his work. He was there at rugby school for a long time, then came to the Marlborough College as headmaster. And at the time, he got an invitation from Calcutta. So you have to take charge of the bishop. You have to be the Bishop of Calcutta. So at first, he was very unwilling because he was not interested in leaving England, but he came here. So since he took great interest in Guwahati, so I would also call him one of the dwellers of Guwahati. And there is one very interesting thing. He was very unhappy about what he saw in this church, this Christ church opposite this building. And he observed, this is quote unquote, the chief disgrace to the church is the font where babies are baptized. He said that it is the chief disgrace. It is the chief. Tate and Brady, actually these two persons were in charge of this church. They do not satisfy Christian devotion. So this font where babies are baptized, standing on 3 bamboo poles. So let me add that within a span of 120 years, there were, I think, 7 bamboo poles in this area. 7 bamboo poles in this area. 3 there in the Christ Church and 4 here.